You know, we have a wonderful opportunity as worship leaders in this generation to have a veritable smorgasbord of options. There are new church plants that are urban, that are rural, that are suburban, that are Midwestern, that are East Coast, that are in a completely different culture, reaching Hispanics or Arabics or whatever group, and that's just here in the United States. In any case, the paradigms of what we think of as church music are shifting in this generation. Here's the old paradigm. In America, it used to be, 50 years ago, we all knew what church was. We knew what church music was. There was a choir. The organ and the piano would play during the prelude and during the offering. Originally, it was just organ, but by the 1960s, most churches had added a piano, and to them that was exciting and it was rather cutting edge. There was a song leader up front who stood behind the pulpit and waved his arm, called out the numbers. We used hymnals, tended to appeal to older people. Everything that happened was in the bulletin, and the left column of the bulletin was the same every week. The right column was merely to change the numbers or the labeling of the person who was doing that particular event. It was to some degree thematically oriented, perhaps based on the calendar, and by that I might mean the church year, Christmas or Easter. I might mean the secular calendar of it's near Independence Day or Mother's Day or the beginning of school or Boy Scout Sunday or whatever it might be. So we're going to preach on that, and we're going to sing about that. It was Sunday morning oriented. It was church building centered, and the service was designed for Christians. We understood that 50 years ago. We understood we would come together, whether we like it or not. We would do the exercises together, the rituals. We would sing the hymns. We would do all that, and it brought us a certain comfort to be repetitive like that. And occasionally we'd have big events like a Christmas musical, Easter cantata, those sorts of things. Well, I grew up in a blue church and spent many years ministering in blue churches, but I was much more green than I was blue. And I remember one elders meeting when I explained to them, I'm green and I think all of you guys are blue, and I think I'm trying to take this church in a different direction, and we need to talk about that and where we're going. So they said, well, what do you mean by green? I said, well, like we use a worship team up front instead of a choir, and we have guitar and band instead of organ and piano. We're just a different set of instrumentation, and we use a worship leader who has a different approach than standing behind the pulpit and holding a hymnal and waving his arms. He's guiding people. He's saying things in between. He's not waving his arm. He's playing guitar and singing, perhaps. Well, that was a significant meeting for us to recognize that. What's more, we are starting to use, projection on the wall. We're putting the words on the wall instead of being hymnal oriented. We're focused on younger people and the style of music that they want to sing, recognizing that we're not keeping the younger generation. We think in terms of worship sets, like maybe singing 3 or 4 songs in a row that pursue a mood, I guess, and take people on a journey rather than being thematically oriented and following the bulletin so closely. We tended to create weekend services, meaning Saturday as well as Sunday, whatever time is convenient for people, and be more seeker-oriented in the way that we approach everything, looking for common ground songs and seeing the whole church through the eyes of seekers. Singing was how people participated. Since that time, I've come to realize I wasn't just green. Really, by the time I got to a church that was green and have ministered in several green churches now, I come to realize I'm probably more yellow than I am green. So the blue church is a fine model and it works. The green church is a fine model and it works. But there is another paradigm, I guess, that's arising where we're not thinking in terms of choir or worship team or people up front necessarily at all. We're thinking of the community. We don't care about organ and piano or guitar and band. We don't have a rehearsed worship time. We sing with CDs, or one person has a guitar and sings some choruses. We not only don't have a song leader or a worship leader, but we have shared leadership. Everyone comes and they bring their own song and people sing. Well, this only works in a house church. We don't think in terms of whether we're trying to market and aim for older people or for younger people, for seekers or whatever. We think of one another as friends, and we do what ministers to those friends. It's much more small group oriented and organic and focused on prayer and not so much in the meeting itself. So we want people to be sharing meals together and doing projects together and praying together and working together. It's about those relationships. That's the big thing. Well, you may also have grown up in a blue paradigm church or a green paradigm church. Perhaps you've even grown up in a yellow paradigm church. You would do well to find out which paradigm the church you are working in or attending best fits under, and also to find out where the center of your heart is so that you can be as efficient as possible. Never split a church. Never split a church. But if you find out that you and your paradigm don't match the church where you're serving, you may be wise to either change your style, your public persona, or quietly and not splitting a church or bringing anybody with you, just quietly go and find another ministry. In any case, the church is precious. The church is the bride of Christ, and whether blue, green, or yellow, it is precious to him, and he shows up every week. There is no perfect church. There are just different paradigms.